does Shanahan even know what he wants at the quarterback spot?
It's
what's the prototypical Kyle Shanahan quarterback?
So I've been thinking a lot about this. We went to some practices, and I'm contrasting what I've seen from the quarterback docs, on Netflix, to what we see in practice. And I mean this with all the respect in the world. I think Kyle is a brilliant play caller. Brilliant play caller. But when it comes to the teaching of it, we don't see it on the field. I don't see collaboration. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not happening in the film room, because I'm not there. That doesn't mean that it's not happening, in whatever iPad study that they're doing on the bus, in the planes, things like that. I cannot speak for that. But when you're at practice, he's calling plays. And all three quarterbacks, well, four if you put Brandon Allen in there, they'll make a pass. They'll make a play. It could be completed or not. And they all turn over their shoulder, and they look to him for either affirmation or some sort of feedback.
Right.
And Kyle's head is down, calling the next play. And a part of me is like, look, I know that you're a great play caller. And he is. He's brilliant at play calling. But there's more to being the head coach than just play calling. And I believe when I watch Andy Reid and when I'm watching this guy who's at the height of his profession, and he does it differently than Kyle. I'm not saying there aren't many ways to get the job done. But when I watch Andy Reid, and I got this sense from Holmgren when we've talked to him, there's a collaboration with the player. Yep. And there's a balance of, here's my play calls. This is the science. I'm going to get you into the structure. But also, you're an artist. And I want you to paint a Rembrandt. I want you to be able to paint Michelangelo. And so, here's the structure. Go out and make beautiful art. And I feel like what Kyle's looking for in a quarterback has oscillated so much. Now, you know what I think he wants? A guy who's just going to be a robot scientist. Just, here's the play, stick to the script, don't freelance. That's why I think it's really hard for rookies to adjust to this offense. You are not running the route exactly the way it was intended.
Is that why it was tough for Jimmy Garoppolo to get on board, because you couldn't do some of the freestyle stuff that he wanted to do?
Did you not hear Jimmy Garoppolo about the Josh McDaniels?
Yeah, how much did you take? How much stock did you take?
I let that soak in, and I said, look, okay, maybe Jimmy G's not the greatest messenger for this, but I think that there is some realness to this that people need to accept. We're like, Jimmy was at his best when he was freelancing.
Right.
When Jimmy was in the 2-minute drills. Wasn't he at his best in those 2-minute drills?
No doubt.
Throughout his entire tenure as a Niner quarterback.
No doubt. He was really good.
I think the worst part of Jimmy was when run this play exactly the way it needs to be run. And then Jimmy would look over to the sideline and Kyle would be furious because he didn't throw to this player on this time. And it felt like that really ruined their relationship.
Right.
There's more than just calling plays.
That's what I'm saying. So to Shanahan, he wants the robotic. Hey, you're going to hit the slant here. You're going to hit it on timing.
Exactly.
I don't want you venturing out of the playbook. That's what Shanahan wants.
No deviations.
So in terms of size, arm strength, what does Shanahan want? Does he want your 6'3", 250-pound quarterback who could throw it 70 yards down the field? Or does he want a Brock Purdy type? Does Shanahan want a quarterback to where he could build up and get all the credit for it?
But isn't it ironic? Because the best part of Brock, for me, not only was like the pocket stuff, but was also
unscripted.
The ad-libs.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're trying, and he even said it, Brock goes, I'm trying not to scramble as much. I'm like, what? That's what made you Brock.
Right.
That's what made you so awesome.
Right.
Was your ability to not throw to the guy that Kyle wanted you to. Like, I've been thinking long and hard about this, B. There's no way in hell Tom Brady and Kyle Shanahan would coexist. You know why? Because Brady would get to the line and be like, Mike linebacker, there's the will. We're deviating from the play. And Kyle would be like, no, do not deviate from my play.
Also, do you think that Shanahan maybe didn't want a Brady type? Because if Brady comes here and wins the Super Bowl, Brady gets off the headlines.
Yeah, I don't know about that part.
Does Shanahan have an ego to that point to where he's like, I got to be the dude?
Don't we all?
Right. But Shanahan, so it's like Andy Reid, I don't think cares that Patrick Mahomes gets all the love. Because Andy Reid knows deep down inside, that's my baby.
Yeah.
I helped blossom that flower. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, he looks at McNabb, he goes, that's my baby. Look at Michael Vick. Man, I turned him around. Yeah. I turned Michael Vick from a runner to a thrower to a guy who could beat me in the pocket. I did that. Shanahan, where it's like, you know what? I think even though Kirk Cousins only played 4 games under him in Washington, I think he loves it that, hey, I'm the guy who discovered Kirk Cousins. You don't think Shanahan has some of that in him, some of that bravado where he's like, I want all the headlines?
I mean, this is the show that's boasted itself as the show that we're the ones that created the CMC trade. So don't we all have a little bit of that in us?
Kind of did, though. Not lying there.
But don't you think he wants a robot?
No doubt. I think there's something there.
I've been around the situation. I think it's fair to be like, the dude literally does not want you to deviate from his plays. I think he thinks so highly of his plays. He thinks that as long as you execute them the way that they need to be executed, someone should always be open. I really do. I think whereas I'm like, I look at it a little more in the middle where I'm like, dude, you still need to have the apex dudes.
Right. Let's go to TC in Sacramento. TC, what's happening?
Bonte Butcher, welcome back, bro. How was your vacation?
It was great, but I missed this.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, look, check it out, Bonte. In my alley, I'm kind of glad that everybody is paying attention to Shanahan. He ain't developing no quarterback, bro, let alone endurance and confidence inside of him and building him up. Just like you said, Butcher, every quarterback looks over their shoulder for this guy to acknowledge him, and his head is down. So we don't really know if Jimmy Garoppolo was garbage or not. Because when he first came over, he was freelancing, like you guys said, and we were at our best. And then when he turned into a robot, it was the no throws and Jimmy is trash.
Right.
You don't think he'll do the same thing with Trey and Brock? So I'm kind of glad everybody is paying attention to Shanahan. The book's out. Even when Quincy Avery came out and said, look, what y'all got against Trey Lance, man? These dudes stopped working with me. Even when Shanahan came on and lied talking about, oh, I don't go out and refer my quarterbacks. Bro, that's what you did in the first place. You get what I'm saying? So, look, this dude need to get it right. I'm telling you. If he don't get it right, bro, he's going to have to go.
I think there's a couple of elements to this. Everyone acknowledges he's a really good coach. He's a greite play caller.
Right. I think quarterback whisperer.
Well, I think his one character flaw is the stubbornness and the rigidity. Right. And I'm thinking out loud here, all right? And I'm looking around just the NFL. I think it's really difficult to be a hard ass when it comes to the quarterback position. Right. I think you need to work in tandem a little more, and you need to have a great working relationship.
I didn't like that when Jimmy said, the quarterbacks don't really have input in this offense, but I have a lot of input with Josh McDaniels. Wouldn't you want your quarterback to be in lockstep with you? Wouldn't you want your quarterback? Like, I think about the Bill Walsh, Joe Montana photo all the time when Montana and Walsh on the field together, diagramming a place in, they're in lockstep.
Yes.
Steve Young and Mike Shanahan made sweet music together last Super Bowl championship with the 49ers. Mooch, and whether it was Marty Morningwig, Jeff Garcia, it felt like they were in lockstep together. It felt like Kaepernick, Alan Smith were in lockstep with Greg Roman and Harbaugh, and it was plays going through everybody. But why is it that it feels like you can't get to that next level with the quarterback if you don't allow him to have any type of input on the playbook? Now, maybe Purdy does suggest, hey, I think we should run the receiver screen here instead of this drag right. I don't know. I'm just making things up. But the way Jimmy made it sound like the Shanahan is like, get out of the office. It's kind of like Farhan and the Giants. Hey, Gabe, here's a lineup card today. These are all the moves you're going to make. Here you go.
Think about the last four teams that were alive last year. It was the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the San Francisco 49ers. Looking at the four situations, wouldn't you say the most rigid of the offenses in terms of, like, you better execute this, X, Y, Z, was the Niners?
Yep.
Zach Taylor feels like him and Burrow. It's like, here's the play, but if you see something you like, roll with it, dog. Now, Burrow's so good, he does. But, like, I think Zach Taylor deserves credit for that. Right. Andy Reid and Mahomes, clearly they're making beautiful music together. And even Sirianni, I don't think he's the play caller, but he's part of that offense.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree? They're running plays Jalen likes.
Yep.
There's an autonomy that they give Jalen in terms of freelancing that allows him to be who he is.
I agree.
Now, the Niners have been wildly successful with what they're doing. So I'm not saying that they're not a good organization.
But you need that quarterback, obviously, to get
exactly.
That's what we're missing here. You need to get to the mountaintop. You need that guy. Here's what Shanahan said. Remember 2020? They're down in Glendale, Arizona. They got placed there because you couldn't practice in the county. Here, you couldn't practice in California, basically, or especially in this county, Santa Clara County or San Francisco County. And they had to move to Glendale, Arizona during the pandemic. It was a lost season. Nobody's going to the games. They got down to Glendale, Arizona. They played the rest of their home games in Glendale, Arizona. They hosted the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. And Josh Allen ripped it up. I mean, he was throwing the ball all over the yard. Sherman was like, wow, what is going on here? Ball's just zipping past his helmet. Well, Shanahan, after the game, here's what he had to say about the quarterback play and the future of quarterback play.
we needed to play our best, and I think that we were very close to doing it. And we just had a few things that didn't keep us out on the field. And when you do that versus an offense and a quarterback like that who's playing the way they are, and you don't get it back from a while, the game gets away from you. I think we needed to keep matching them, and it was frustrating because I believe, not taking anything away from them, they did an awesome job, but I believe that we were capable of that. And we had our times, which I think you saw at times. But we had to do it every time today, and we didn't get that done.
Well, we had another cut later on where he said, basically, the future of the league. You look at guys like, you want a prototypical pocket quarterback. However, guys like Josh Allen, guys what they're going to do moving forward, getting out of the pocket, throwing on the run, that could be the future quarterback, which made us all to believe that Trey Lance was his guy.
Look, he's been here. Kyle has been here 7 years.
7 years now.
Can you remember? Because in that game, the Josh Allen game, Josh Allen would go to the line of scrimmage and they would have 4 or 5 wide. And then remember, he was just pointing. I'm going to go to him. I'm going to go to him. I'm going to go to him. And he just ate the Niners up at the line of scrimmage. Pre-snap. Remember? Pre-snap. Can you remember any point in time where the Niners went X wide, however, 3, 4, 5 wide,
right,
and allowed their quarterback to, shooting ducks in a barrel, basically? Right. Can you remember that?
No.
I can't remember that ever. When did they ever say, hey, Jimmy, go 4 wide, go 5 wide, and just pick them up? Now, you can say, Joe, Jimmy's not good enough to get that autonomy. I'll listen to that. But I think that at times you have to allow your quarterback to diagnose pre-snap who the open man is. Like, who is the guy that you need to go to? And when you're deviating from the script of a great play caller, I think that they don't want to lose control of the play that they've designed in the huddle.
Well, Shanahan said after that game, I think some of the challenges over the last, at least in my career, is you get some of these unbelievable athletes who have never had to sit in the pocket. You already go through that because they could just win games and Pop Warner just running around. Then eventually you get to the NFL, and there's times where you've got to do that, and it's really tough. But I think there's more and more guys coming out who have been doing both forever. When you have that, then you've got a chance to do both. And that's why you can see that the league is finding more and more of those guys like Josh Allen, like Jalen Hurts, like Patrick Mahomes, like a Joe Burrow. Maybe Brock Purdy's that guy for him. Maybe Brock Purdy's that guy who could make things happen with his legs and arm. And he did make things happen with his legs. Give Purdy credit.
Doubt. No, but that's the best part about him. And that's why when I heard Brock Purdy say that, hey, I'm going to try to not run around as much, I'm like,
well, no, that's sort of your best attribute.
Exactly. That's what made you Brock.
Right.
I actually think this, I'm not even trying to be hyperbolic. I actually think that Kyle thinks probably if he were to assess 17 games of Josh Allen and the playoffs multiple years in a row, I think that he would assess Josh Allen is he's too wild for him. I think he's way too wild for him.
For Shanahan, really?
I do. No, I think he loves the best attributes of him when he's running through guys and throwing 80-yard bombs.
That's why I also believe, though, when people say Shanahan didn't want Mac Jones. Michael Silver just wrote about that again. Like, Shanahan really didn't want Trey Lance. He wanted Mac Jones. And he was sitting there on the board for him to take. I don't believe that.
What do you mean?
I don't believe that Shanahan wanted Mac Jones. I truly believe Shanahan wanted to take Trey Lance when he got his hands on him. Now, I think it was between Trey Lance and Justin Fields. And he looked at Trey Lance saying, well, he has had less injuries than Justin Fields has had at Ohio State. Justin Fields used to get rocked at Ohio State, taking hits left and right. But he saw Trey Lance, and we had the North Dakota State coach on Matt Enns, who said, yeah, the 49ers were here a lot. They were there a lot up in Sioux Falls, North Dakota. And so you think about Mike Shanahan and the quarterbacks that he all coached. He coached John Elway twice. He coached Steve Young to an MVP season. The best season Steve Young ever had as a starting quarterback was under Mike Shanahan. Jake Plummer had some of his best years under Mike Shanahan in Denver, advanced to an AFC championship game where they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He looked and developed or found Jay Cutler, right? Big, strong, armed quarterbacks who can move out of the pocket. Look a lot like Trey Lance. Like John Elway was that dude.
So what are you saying?
What I'm saying is that Kyle Shanahan did not want Mac Jones. I don't believe that in my heart of hearts.
What do you think?
What I think he wanted Trey Lance all along.
So then what was the big hesitation then? Why is it all this revisionist history?
See, I don't know why it's a big revision. Well, because Trey Lance hasn't panned out yet, right? Because Trey Lance has gotten hurt through his second season. We all forget, though, Trey Lance was named the starting quarterback, and they went through OTAs with Trey Lance as the number one quarterback leading up to last season. Trey was their guy. Hell, I even think Trey Lance was flirted as a starter his rookie season. And Shanahan slipped up later on saying that, yeah, we did have a little bit of a controversy. And if Jimmy didn't win that Chicago game, there was going to be a quarterback change. That's basically been our record.
Is this because we've heard so much about Kyle, like, hey, there are like 6 or 7 guys, the Cabo clique, who represent the 49ers. And like all the big decisions goes through the locker room. I'm talking about Kittle and Debo and Trent and Juice and CMC and those guys, right?
Right.
We're talking a lot about Kyle. How much do those guys factor into all of this? Because, like, I think part of the Jimmy thing was like, hey, they couldn't release Jimmy. They couldn't find anyone. But a lot of those players were like, hey,
keep Jimmy here. We've won a lot of games with them. We probably want to keep him.
I guess my question is, how much of that pressure is player-driven versus his own internal struggle?
I don't know. It's a great question. Because
I'm thinking about it now, and I'm saying to myself, like, on the Brock Purdy thing, I do believe Kyle loves Brock Purdy. My question is not that just will the players slowly start to go, hey, we're not as good as we were. And, hey, we were doing X, Y, and Z, and then them get restless like they did with Trey.
Maybe. I think
they did with Jimmy at times.
I think the players are a little annoyed that the quarterback situation is still unsettled. Now, we could say unsettled. Brock Purdy, with that said, is the number 1 quarterback right now. He is starting at quarterback. But if he struggles for a little bit, I do believe that doubt will creep into players' minds saying, boy, that was 8 games, a little sample size. Maybe the league has caught up to them. Because players around the league will talk to other players about their players. Boy, that Brock Purdy sure is fun to play with, huh? Like the way players talked about Jimmy Garoppolo during his 5-game run, we kind of ignored it because they did go undefeated. But I vividly remember being in that Jaguars locker room when Jimmy torched them, and Jalen Ramsey, and Calais Campbell, and Miles Jack, and all the Telvin Smith, that linebacker out of Florida State.
Miles Jack, who just signed with the Eagles? Sorry, keep going.
Did he sign with the Eagles, linebacker?
Yeah.
When?
They just signed 2 guys. They signed Miles Jack.
Right now?
Yeah.
And Zach Cunningham.
Thank you.
They signed Miles Jack?
I know. I like Miles Jack.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Damn.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go crazy on you.
But in that
I
locker
love
room,
Miles Jack.
but in that locker room, those players said it. Jimmy ain't nothing special.
It's interesting.
Jimmy is a system quarterback. It was all scheme. They all said, I was sitting in that locker room with Marcus Thompson II. All they said was, Jimmy, scheme. And off the record, those players were pissed they lost to Jimmy Garoppolo. So to your point, players they kind of tell you how they feel about a player. They'll slip up and say some things. But see, I think Jimmy was back last year because it wasn't because of uncertainty with Trey Lance. It was because, we can't go into the season with an unproven quarterback as a starter and an unproven backup in Brock Purdy. We have to have some type of veteran presence here. Jimmy or Sudfeld. At least we know Jimmy can run our system. We know Sudfeld is a tomato can. Like, come on, let's be real. So let's breathe. That's why I think people missed the boat. Jimmy was brought back because of the uncertainty of both quarterbacks, not just Trey, but also Brock.
And he was hurt. Remember, they couldn't release him without a financial penalty, right? That's another part that I think people are neglecting to remember. There was specific financial ramifications on top of probably their own reservations.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. Like, I watch a lot of the reactions. Everybody, when you go to camp, they're all writing down numbers and they're writing things down. I like to straight up watch the reactions of players, and whether it's Darnold, whether it's Trey, whether it's Brock Purdy, I see a lot of frustration in general from a lot of receivers because they all think they're open on every single play. And if this thing struggles early and often, I could see these players getting frustrated just with whoever's playing quarterback. They all believe they have a Super Bowl ready to go winning team.
Well, it's just more so just what does Shanahan want at quarterback? Does he want all the credit? Does he not want the credit? What does Shanahan really want? And I believe he wanted Trey Lance. I believe he went up there and saw Trey Lance throw that football, and he designed some of those plays, and he thought, boy, this guy's big, he's strong, he could run they run 2 tight end sets up there in North Dakota State all day long, a pro-style offense. He could come in and run my offense. I feel good about Trey. I don't believe Shanahan was that high on Mac Jones. I don't.